Today's video is on Dendrochronology. I mentioned this on a video a few weeks ago, and I was waiting to get Leo out here so Leo could learn from this experience today. And Dendrochronology is the study of the growth of trees and the rings within the tree. We'll come to that in a minute. When you see a branch on a tree like this here, in 5 years' time, if we were to come back, this tree branch would not be somewhere up here on the tree. A tree doesn't grow that way, that it continues upwards. This branch is always going to be at this spot on the tree, and that's why I come along and take these lower branches off, is because once they've been cut off, they heal over, they don't come back, and then you have a nice clean log that over time is going to grow outwards in diameter over wherever I cut the limb off, and it's going to heal it and become, I believe, what would be called a veneer log. So you can actually get a cut of wood out of your log that has no imperfections, no branches coming through it or knots in your lumber. So if you looked at how a tree grew, it would be like pylons like this here. You'd have a pylon, and then on top of that, the next year, another pylon would come on top of it, and then another and another. So the top of the tree is growing upwards, and all around the tree is growing outwards. Now, just like these pylons, as it grows outwards, it creates rings. So you'd have a ring of growth for this year, and then another ring of growth for this outer pylon out here. Counting up those rings from the center of the tree will tell you the age of the tree, and the spacing of those rings, how far apart each one is, will tell you about the health of the tree and the growing conditions. So here's our first log, and we're going to look at this pie shape that I've marked out with the marker running here and here. From the middle, if you were to count out each ring that you see here, this tree would come to 35 years old, or would have started growing around 1990. From the center of the tree outward, every ring that you can see here is a year. The lighter portion in here is the spring and summer as the tree's growing well, and then the dark line indicates the fall and winter time when the growth of the tree really slows down or stops altogether. We have cold enough years in the northern hemisphere that we get this in our trees, these rings. The closer you are to the equator, the less variability you have in your seasons and in your temperature, and therefore some trees at the equator may not have any growth rings at all, in which case it's very hard to determine their age and what health they had year to year growing. But on a tree like this, we can see from here, these rings are quite wide at the start when this started growing. So say for the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, even into about the first 18 years or so coming up this line, this tree was growing quite well. And then in the last bunch of years, those rings are smaller. And what that means is that this thing was not growing as well near the end of its life here before I cut it. I believe that's because this block of woods was unmanaged up until I came here, and the trees were getting crowded. So initially, when they weren't so crowded after this block had been cut, they were growing quite healthy down here and quite a bit each year. And then as these trees grew up and filled in the canopy, they started to crowd one another out, and the growing slowed dramatically over the last few years. So with that in mind, after we've cleared out a bunch of this block, we should, over the next 5 years or so, see larger rings in the trees that are left here. They should start growing better because now they have less competition. If you look at the forest around me, you can see I've taken out a lot of trees around here. I'm on probably my 4th pass through this block of woods trying to thin things down. And so my first pass, I took out all the dead rotten wood and so forth. And now I'm getting down to the larger softwood trees on this block of land. And I'm taking down some of the biggest softwood trees that still had maybe a broken top, or we're still crowding a healthier softwood tree next to it. And so I've got a second tree down right here. We'll zoom in a second. And this one too happens to be around 35 years old. So from that, I can now surmise that this block of woods was probably clear cut at one time around 1990.
Yeah, and I also figured out something. You're older than all these trees.
That's not true, ladies and gentlemen. 10-year-olds don't know how to do math. So, this tree was, like I say, all these trees in this block of woods, softwood trees, would be around 35 years old. And I can see the same trend in this one here. Let's zoom in here, Leo, and we'll show the rings. Okay, so on our second log, we can see a similar trend. This one started off not quite as well early on. It had some good years, around 10 years to 20 years into its life. And then up here again, it really started to get smaller and smaller rings. Maybe you could see it better out here at this edge. You could see all of these little rings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. At least 11 years now, this tree has not been doing very well in its growth. Third log we have here, it's gone a little bit soft, so it gets harder to see the rings in it.
Your hand didn't lift the entire log.
What?
Look, is that the wrong log in your hand?
Oh, I got the wrong log altogether here. Okay, my bad. I was wondering that. Okay, here's our third and final log we'll show today. This one I counted about 33 rings, but it's very difficult to distinguish sometimes on these. And the same trend, though, again, out here at the end. Very, very tight growth rings for the last at least 15 years. And much larger growth rings down here when this forest was young. So had somebody maybe at the age of about 15 years, so that would have been around 2005, had somebody come into this block of woods and thinned it, maybe we would have saw larger growth rings continue along out here to the 35 years. But because this forest wasn't managed well and it grew up too condensed or too thick, all of these trees started to suffer in the last number of years especially. So what we've learned from this today with looking at these 3 mature fir trees that we've cut down is that they're all similar age. They all started suffering from crowding, I would say, unless it's environmental conditions. It could be anything in here. Now, I'm probably doing the right thing in here where I'm coming through and thinning all of these trees out, that I'm going to have trees now start to grow at a larger diameter each year for the next number of years. And I should end up with much nicer logs in this forest, say in 5-10 years' time, than what exists here today. And so of course, we're going to compare that over time, and we're also going to try to do this video on other blocks of our land, some places maybe where it was naturally thinner or had been thinned previously. And we're going to see, comparison-wise, the growth from one sort of biome to another around the area. Hope you learned a lot, Leo. What did you learn today?
Most importantly, that my dad is very old.
Awesome. At least you learned something. Yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. Like and subscribe.
Bye.